If you don't like and subscribe, your girl will.
YouTube. What's the deal, my yodis? We back with another video. I guess we got Javed. Javed? Javed? How you say this yodi name? The serial killer with 100 bodies. Hey, let's get right into it, man. See what's talking about.
In the year 1999, Javed Iqbal went on an unprecedented spree of vicious killings. In 6 months, 100 boys vanished,
Boys?
and mutilated by the monster named Javed Iqbal.
Oh, no. I'm not doing this one. Nah, stop the video already. Nah, cut the video. Cut the video. Little boys? Little boys? Oh, man. I already don't want to watch this one, chat.
100 murders, 6 months? How? Welcome back to Twisted Minds. My name is James, and this is the sickening case of Javed Iqbal. Faisal Razik was a 9-year-old boy who worked in a factory folding boxes to make a living. He had a home, and his parents loved him. But they were also terribly poor. So poor that everyone in their family, including 9-year-old Faisal, had to make ends meet, or they would starve. So every morning at dawn, Faisal would dash down to the factory and work till dusk for what was often a measly wage. Now, you must know that Faisal's case wasn't an exception. It was the rule. Back in 1999, poverty levels in both rural and urban areas in Pakistan were at an all-time high. In fact, the Human Rights Commission of Pakistan estimated that in the 90s, 11 million children had jobs, and half of them were under the age of 10. So while his
11 million kids had jobs?
For Faisal,
Oh
it was
my.
perfectly normal. It remained perfectly normal until the morning of the 9th of July, 1999. As usual, Faisal left home in the morning to go to work. But he didn't return that night, and he didn't return any night after. He was missing. Where was Faisal? His employers told his anxious parents that they hadn't seen him anywhere. His underage colleagues had also not seen him. So Faisal's desperate parents were forced to turn to the police for help. But the police were nonchalant. Go check the house of your relatives, they said. Your child probably ran away. Of course, this wasn't true. Faisal hadn't run away. The tragic truth was, 9-year-old Faisal had been taken by Javed Iqbal. The poor boy was one victim out of the 100 that Javed violated and slaughtered.
Violated?
Ijaz Muhammad was another one of those unfortunate victims. His family called him Kaka, after the legendary Brazilian soccer player. But while Ijaz might have been good with his feet, he was also skilled with his hands. At the age of 13, Ijaz and his older teenage brother were full-time freelance masseuses who roamed the streets of Lahore in worn-out sandals and hung out in the gardens of Manari, Pakistan, cleaning colorful bottles of ointment to draw the attention of customers. They also wore ankle bracelets studded with shiny stones that attracted men who paid for head and shoulder massages. Sometimes, this was a sickening horror of the job, some of these same men would force themselves on Ijaz and his brother.
No.
And it was a cruel trade and a desperate existence.
Yo, chat. Yo, YouTube. What are y'all doing? If you just working, right? Wherever you work at, say you a masseuse. You just start working. You just doing your job. You massaging him. Get the oil, him. And the Yodi talking about some. Come here. What are you doing? What?
But neither Ijaz nor his brother could have.
Yes, it actually is possible to eat healthy and still have a life.
The factor has made the biggest difference in how I
guessed that it was about to take another turn for the worse. In October 1999, two boys approached Ijaz and his brother in the gardens of Minari, Pakistan. These boys told the two hustling siblings that their boss needed a massage and that he was willing to pay double for home service. Ijaz's older brother remembers following the two boys for a short distance through winding paths until they got to a house numbered 16B on Ravi Road. There, they met a short, bespectacled man with neatly kept hair, a calm demeanor, and a limp. Ijaz stayed to massage this man, and his older brother left to find other customers. Unfortunately, the short, neat man in glasses was Javed Iqbal.
Dang.
Ijaz was never found alive.
Dang. Like, what if you like walked with your brother somewhere and then you knew, okay, he about to work, I'm about to go do this job over here, and you don't see him for like a week, and then you like, oh, I'm about to go back to that spot. Gone. My heart, bro, my heart will be straight in my butt cheeks, boy.
No one knew it at the time, but the gardens of Minari, Pakistan had become Javed's hunting ground.
Dang.
He had 3 teenage boys who helped him carry out his atrocities. 17-year-old Sajid Ahmed, 15-year-old Mohammed Nadim, and 13-year-old Mohammed Sabir. They had most definitely been assaulted and brainwashed by Javed.
Yeah, of
They
course.
helped the serial killer lure unsuspecting kids to his home, where he took sexual advantage of them, strangled them to death, cut their bodies up, and dissolved their remains in acid before dumping it in a river in Lahore. The number 100 was deliberate. It was the number he had thought deeply about before he chose it. And he didn't stop his rampage until he violated his 100th victim. In late November of 1999, Javed sent a self-incriminating package to the Lahore police office. It contained pictures of little boys and a detailed letter where Javed described excruciatingly how he had assaulted, murdered, and dismembered 100 boys. For some reason, most of the policemen felt like it was a lie, a stunt. It probably read like fiction to them. But in the spirit of due diligence, they paid a visit to the address where the letter was mailed, 16B Ravi Road.
Wait. So the brother never went back? Or if he was still at that address, the brother never went back? Because if it was me and that was my brother, I'm going back to that address that night. What? And even if the police ain't coming, even if the police ain't coming, I'm going back like with cousins and everything. Like we flooding that spot. I'm looking. And as soon as I see some blood or some shyster, nah, bruh.
When they arrived,
Nah.
Iqbal was at home. But when they questioned him about the letter, he snapped and behaved like he was possessed. When they tried to press him for answers, he pulled out a gun and threatened to shoot himself if they didn't leave. So the police left. They didn't even bother to check inside the home.
Shoot yourself then. Boogie yourself. What are we talking about here? Let him kill himself and then search the house. What?
If they had,
Yeah, I don't understand, bro. Like how like we got these police officers and stuff like that, bro, and they be trying to act like they all hard, and they be trying to bro. I don't know if you guys have ever seen police officers, and if you're a police officer watching this, bro, y'all be acting like y'all so hard and y'all so tough, and y'all ain't scared of nothing, right? But then when it comes down to y'all cracking down on these yodis, y'all don't do nothing. Y'all get frightened and y'all run away. It's insane, bro.
they would have found damning evidence, enough to prove that this was no joke. However, by the
Whoa, he numbered
time
them?
they found
Wait, hold
damning
on.
evidence, enough to prove that this was
Age 835, age 853. He was taking pictures of them or something and numbering which one it was? Bro. And I know this is a different state, right? But even in the United States, I don't know if you guys are, but police officers, they be sitting there acting like they hard, acting like, oh yeah, like, you know what I'm saying? Like they not friendly, like they can't, you know what I'm saying? You can't eat, like, you know what I mean? It ain't good cop, bad cop. Sometimes they be bad cop, bad cop, bad cop. You know what I'm saying? They be trying to act like they like they militia, like you feeling like they really moving that militant. But then when it comes down to it, they be so frightened, bro.
No joke. However, by the time the police returned to their station, they not only waved off the case, they dismissed the entire thing as a waste of time.
Huh?
They Iqbal well enough. In fact, the police department had a long history of exchanges like these with the man. And that's why when the officer in charge of the courtesy visit was asked for a report, he said Javed wasn't a killer of hundreds of kids. He was a nutcase. And that officer...
So if he's a nutcase, you don't think that he would booga kids? If he's a nutcase, if you can see that this man is a tweaker, and you have run into all these meetings with him, if you think that he is insane, how would you not check that he would do something insane? I'm about to get off this case already. We only 6 minutes in, bro. I'm about to stop the vid, bro. I'm already getting tight.
And probably the entire police force
I'm getting tight, bro.
Didn't know was that Javed had just finished an unbelievable reign of crimes. And it was his oversized sense of self-importance that was responsible for the letter he sent. Javed was seeking attention, a spotlight on himself and his atrocities. It was the end of the road. This was his final card.
I mean, of course, bro.
He was trying to send a loud message. So he decided to send the same package elsewhere, to a place where he knew it wouldn't be ignored. Javed sent the same package to the office of the Jang, Pakistan's most popular Urdu language newspaper. A letter in the package described in excruciating detail how Javed lured boys to his house to sodomize them, how he strangled them and dissolved their bodies in acid. He mentioned in sick, twisted details the exact parts of their body he fancied and the date he brought them in. He also documented the name of each victim, their home address, the color of their clothing, and the shape of their faces. And if this wasn't strange enough, Javed Iqbal also recorded the amount it cost him to dispose of his victims' bodies. Everything from the cost of the acid to the cost of transporting their remains to the river.
Oh my lord.
Do you play League of Legends? Microsoft has a brand new way to get rival.
All of this was bad enough, but for me, the most chilling item in this package were the pictures. Photographs of every child he claimed to have killed. He had taken these photographs before he killed them, before they even knew the monster he was. So, each image had the innocence, often confused eyes of hundreds of boys, curiously staring into the camera. Most of them smiling, tragically unaware of the terrible fate that lay ahead. This is why it makes no sense that the police didn't take Javed's case seriously. There was just too much in that package to brush it off as the musings of a crazy person. Thankfully, the journalists who received the package were curious enough to carry out their own investigations. If this was real, it would be the story of the century in Pakistan. But if they were going to publish it, they had to go to the house where the package was mailed from. 16B Ravi Road, an inconspicuous house on a dead-end street. But no one was around. The house itself was locked and abandoned. So the journalists scaled a fence and found their way in. The first thing that hit them was the stench. They immediately identified the pungent smell of toxic chemicals hanging in the air. But they hadn't yet familiarized themselves with the other smell that was heavy in the air, the smell of death.
Dang.
It wasn't until they stumbled on several barrels lined up in the room, and it wasn't until they opened one that the smell reintroduced itself, this time more pronounced. There were chopped up human remains within these barrels.
Oh
One
my.
barrel had a torso. Another had a chopped off leg with an ankle.
Nah, bro. If I open something and all I see is just a body and you know it's real, nah.
Bracelet studded with shiny stones. The gravity of the case had begun to dawn on the journalists. They realized they were dealing with the worst case of serial killing in the history of Pakistan. Possibly one of the worst carried out by one man in human history. So the journalists went out of their way to contact the addresses of the boys that Javed Iqbal had extracted from.
Like, bro, this doesn't even sound real, bro. This doesn't sound real. Like how, bro? Little boys, you just like how? This sounds
from his victims before he brutally killed
it's
them.
disgusting, bro.
And what they found was chilling. Every address was home to a family looking for a son. This was more than enough for a story. The next day, December 3rd, the front page of the Jang newspaper carried a cold-blooded headline in Urdu: "Claim of murder of 100 kids." Inside the paper was the evidence, the details from the letter, the pictures of 57 confirmed missing boys, and the story of a potential serial killer who was nowhere to be found. This was the story of the century. And as expected, the moment the papers hit the stand, all of Pakistan was scandalized. There was an uproar. The citizens wanted to know how this was allowed to happen in Lahore, Pakistan's second most populated city. The government came under serious pressure internally and internationally. The police were dumbfounded, especially because they had
You guys, they're dumbfounded. Police are dumbfounded. The same police where he sent the letter to before and they did nothing. The same Yodis who said this man's insane, but we're not gonna check if the kids are missing. The same police where the Yodi with his brother went to the house and his brother went missing, and the brother didn't say, "Oh, where was that? The last time I saw him was at 16B or whatever the address was."
bungled the
I know the brother had to go there and be like, "Okay, last time I saw him was here." All right, like I'm not gonna go there, Dolo. Police go, and they didn't go because they're like, "Oh, he's not a serial killer. The kid ran away."
opportunity to arrest Javed when he was right under their nose. As the search for Javed Iqbal began, 100 mothers mourned the loss of their sons as they cried to anyone who would give them an answer. Who was this monster called Javed Iqbal? Why had he taken their sons? Where was
He's
he?
sick.
Captain, there are still 9 orders.
There was a heap of children's clothing in the Lahore police station, and a horde of desperate parents were identifying the garments that had belonged to their sons. The police had gotten this heap from Javed's home.
I know your heart. I know their heart was just like in straight hell, bro. If you just know that your son's clothes was just off, then you just see their clothes off hanging there. That's just oh.
home. But they still had no idea where the man was. A week before, they had taken dragnets to a specific lake in Lahore. In the letter from the package, Javed Iqbal claimed he would take his own life by drowning there. But the police and the parents of his victims needed to see his corpse before they believed him.
Facts.
Surprisingly, or maybe unsurprisingly, Javed had lied because the police found nothing.
Of course.
Even after searching every inch of that lake, Javed Iqbal was alive somewhere. So, they began one of the most extensive manhunts the country had ever seen. But again, they found nothing. Where was he? They knew he hadn't left the country, so where was he hiding? That question remained unanswered until one night, the 29th of December, 1999 to be specific. After a month-long search, a man showed up at the front door of the Jang newspaper. His clothes were torn and dirty. His hair and beard were long and unkempt, and his sandals were worn out. "I am Javed Iqbal," he said, "killer of 100 children." For the next hour, while the police made their way to the newspaper office to take him in, Javed opened up to the journalists about everything, every detail of his crimes, and every detail of his life. Born in 1961 as the 6th of 8 children, Javed had a surprisingly privileged childhood. His father wasn't obscenely wealthy, but they were very rich. Rich enough to own multiple properties, businesses, and land, and rich enough to command the respect of everyone who knew them in their corner of.
And that's why the police didn't do anything. That's why right there. It's facts. That's why he was like, "Oh, he's not a killer." How do you know? How do you know? Oh, because you know his dad is wealthy and he's in a prison. You know what I'm saying? He got 6 brothers and sisters. That's why.
Of Lahore. The only problem with
It could
Javed's
be
childhood
anybody,
was
bro.
that his father spoiled him rotten. Javed was coddled like a prince. When he was in high school, his father brought him a 200cc motorbike and an entire villa for him to live in. He also set up a steel recasting business for the young boy to oversee. While the business might not have been a bad idea, because Javed was very much like his father and had a talent for business. The villa and all the luxuries that came with it exposed the teenager to a lethal mix of extreme freedom and extreme affluence that set him on a destructive path.
Yo, chat. Let me ask you right now. If your dad gave you a business, $1 million business, bro, a villa, like I'm talking about a mansion in high school, you get everything that you want, G. You could do anything that you want. You got a business, you got a villa, you got anything that you want, G. The first thing you're gonna start thinking about is, I'm about to take 100 boys' cheeks. Boy, ain't no way, bro.
Javed had cravings, the urge for sex that develops in puberty. However, Javed's urge was intense. It was a strong, twisted craving for sex that intertwined with his growing sense of entitlement and the endless resources his father had given him. And to make matters a little more complicated for him, he was gay. Gay in the Islamic Republic of Pakistan. Gay in a conservative family and in a conservative society that viewed his homosexuality as a disease that needed to be cured. Ordinarily, Javed's urges would have been stifled and repressed. He would have to constantly look over his shoulder in fear as he sought to find a partner to experiment with. But you must remember that Javed was extraordinarily spoiled, and his rotten upbringing meant that he didn't feel like anything was out of reach for him. To make matters a little more
Okay, I know that there was another, bro. Okay, there had to been another homosexual man in Israel at that time, and all you had to do was say, hey, bro, you can live with me, and then, you know what I'm saying, we won't be public, but like we just be in our crib, we rich, so it don't matter. People just think we friends. Why are you taking little boys' cheeks?
complicated, Javed also had a mean streak in him. He was deeply manipulative. So in his quest for sex, he resorted to devious tactics that involved baiting and coercing his schoolmates into sleeping with him. It got so bad that at one point, his mates nicknamed him the Boy Hunter.
Oh.
Javed would pack his villa with boys his age and younger, all teenagers, some schoolmates, some strangers. I mean, he was a 17-year-old who had a villa and a 200cc motorbike.
This is not a natural storm.
All to himself. Even if the impressionable teens weren't interested in having sex with him, they most definitely wanted to be around him. To them, he must have been like a god, a rock star, moonlighting as a student. But Javed's appetite for sex was endless. The scores of boys he had around him weren't enough. In fact, judging by the way he treated them, they were just there, on display for his pleasure. What Javed loved was the thrill of the hunt. Javed preferred lovers he got using his devious tactics.
Wow.
His favorite method involved writing letters to pen pals who he met via magazines. Innocent, unassuming teenagers just looking for a friend. Javed would build trust with these pen pals and then request their pictures.
Yeah,
After
he's
this,
just sick. He's just
he would
sick,
create
bro.
a short list of the most attractive boys, who he would shower with gifts and money. Eventually, he would get what he wanted. Sex with the most vulnerable and agreeable of the lot. Unsurprisingly, this obsession with sex became a problem in his family. Their obvious concern was the fact that he was gay. It was a sin in Islam, their religion, a crime in the state, and a taboo in society. They were convinced they had to stop Javed and cure him before it was too late.
So let me get this right. He was 17 doing this. He got caught from it eventually, and his family got on his cheeks for it, right? And then, years later, when the policeman went and did the investigation on the guy who said he wasn't the hunter, right? But in his past, it shows that he was doing that. So how did they just let him walk away and drop charges?
Surprisingly, Javed's father didn't share their perspective or concerns about his son. In fact, he went out of his way to shield Javed from his family.
Yeah, exactly.
And refused to allow them to interfere with his life.
Exactly.
Unsurprisingly, Javed saw his father's protection as a badge of approval and proceeded to immerse himself more in his depraved craze for sex. This would continue into Javed's adulthood. As you already know, Javed's sexual partners didn't mature with him. In his early 20s, Javed continued targeting teenagers and preteens. Javed wasn't just a queer individual trying to be himself in a conservative society. He was an oppressor, a predator whose obsession had matured into a cancer that was about to cause one of the most
I don't even want to watch
devastating
this one no more.
and controversial events.
I don't even want to
in
watch this.
Pakistan's
This is
history.
disgusting.
Javed's father might have begun to see the problems during this period, especially because his beloved son showed no signs of settling down. And when the old man tried to initiate the conversation, the young man resisted. He had no intention of marrying a woman. So for the first time, Javed's father joined his family against his son. When the pressure to get married was intense
GG.
enough, Javed
GG.
searched for a compromise and found it. He said yes to one of the brides his family proposed to him. A wedding was scheduled, and in 1983, at the age of 22, Javed Iqbal got married. Big mistake. Unknown to his family, the only reason he agreed to marry this woman was because he was sodomizing her underage brother. And as some family members would later recount to the investigators, the boy was the only reason he gave the marriage a chance. By now, the family was
He
becoming
married-
aware of who Javed had become. They
Oh
were trying to
my.
maintain the family image. Unfortunately, that illusion would shatter when
Women, what are you doing? What are you doing when you find out that you married a man and he only married you to clap your little brother's cheeks? What are you doing? What are you doing? Poison his food. I don't know. Do something. What did she do? Did she not know? She just let him clap the little brother's cheeks? Where was she when this is going on? You supposed to be protecting your little brother, man.
a few months after the wedding, the marriage was dissolved.
Oh,
Not
well,
long after, Javed would get married once again
well, that's what. Okay, well, okay, we know.
to the youngest sister of one of his boys. And just for context, girls as young as 14 were married off at the time in Pakistan. So you can make a safe guess that the boy in question was also underage.
Yeah,
This
like
marriage didn't last either.
10.
After his second marriage failed, Javed's father stopped trying, and his family gave up on him entirely. This was exactly what Javed wanted. Now, he was free. For the next 7 years, the predator sought out and assaulted young boys with impunity. All the while, his family, fully aware, did nothing.
Yeah.
And even the community became aware of what he was, but they also did nothing.
The community? I don't even care anymore.
If you
I don't
ask
even
me,
care anymore, bro.
I would say the reason the community turned a blind eye was
I don't
because
care.
most of the victims were homeless orphans or runaways who
It
slept
doesn't
on the
matter.
street and who nobody cared for.
It doesn't
It wasn't
matter.
until 1990 that Javed's depravity flung itself on the doorstep of one of the most respected members in the community. Javed had sodomized the 9-year-old son of a respected member of his own community. When the man found out, he immediately filed a complaint against Javed with the police. This was a case that should have been taken seriously, and in the beginning it was. Now, the police were aware of this sick individual. Now, he would be taken out of society and locked in a cage. Right? When the police
No.
arrived at Javed's house to arrest him, he wasn't home. So, they did the next best thing. They arrested his father and 2 brothers, holding them as collateral until Javed turned himself in. This wasn't exactly in line with the law. The police were bending the rules here, but they wanted Javed and they were prepared to do anything to get him. Now, You would imagine that Javed, hearing his loving father and innocent brothers had been arrested on his behalf, would immediately rush to the stage to
No.
give himself up.
Heck no.
You would think he would do the right thing.
No, heck
And
no.
you would be wrong.
I'm
Because,
not thinking
believe it
that.
or not, Javed's father and brothers spent
Bro.
7 days behind bars.
Bro, come on now. You think he turning himself in, bro? First of all, they took away all his bread. They took away his villa. He probably still had his little motorbike. They excommunicated him from the family. He's not turning himself in. He's out there looking for the next little Yodi.
Javed simply refused to give himself up. On the 8th day of his father's incarceration, the frustrated policemen switched techniques and raided his villa once again. This time, they arrested and detained one of his teenage boys. Remember the young boys who he had brainwashed to help him carry out the crimes? When Javed returned to his villa and found his boy was missing, he fought with family members who were there during the second raid for doing nothing to stop the police from arresting his boy. A few hours later, Javed turned himself into the police and secured the release of the boy. Then, he bribed the police and the parents of the assaulted 9-year-old, and that was that.
That was that? I don't care,
The case
bro.
was brushed under the carpet, and Javed was a free man.
Uh-oh.
And just like a pig fresh out of a bathhouse, Javed headed back to his sty and dove headfirst into the mud and sludge of his perversion.
So he did all this. He did all this. They knew he was doing this. Let me get this right. They knew he was doing this at 20. This is around he's 20, right? In this 20 something. They found one of his boys that he used to get other boys. He turned himself in for that boy. Bribed everybody with whatever money that he scraped together somehow. They let him go. And then he turns in a letter years later saying, I killed 100 boys and I did all this shysta in detail. And the police officer is saying that he's not a killer. He would not do that. Are we on the same page here? I am getting furious
It didn't take
watching
long
this
for him to get
video.
caught again. This time, he sodomized
I'm about
the
to
son of a man
punch
as
my
rich as
monitor.
his father. And this time, his arrest led to a conviction that saw him spend 6 months in jail. 6 months later, he was out and back to the only life he knew. However, he had learned something. He realized that if he was going to avoid future issues with the police, he would have to build something of a relationship with them through manipulative means. His method of achieving this was by lodging flimsy complaints with them every other day and visiting the station just as frequently. Soon enough, the police knew him well, and soon enough, they didn't want to. In the meantime, Javed was accused of taking sexual advantage of 2 boys at gunpoint. And this time, the elders in his neighborhood decided to take matters into their own hands.
Thank you. Somebody do
Their
something.
proposed punishment was public shaming. Javed was brought before a council.
Public shaming? You can chop off his arms, bro. Chop off his little, you know what I'm saying? His little willy, you know what I'm saying? Chop off his willy. Chop off his arms. All he could do is walk around and look now. Take his eyes. I don't know. Like,
Council, where he confessed to his crime. Then he signed a document where he promised never to touch another boy again.
cap.
Photocopies were distributed across the area. Then, Javed was forced to visit 100 shops in the main market in their neighborhood where he apologized for his crime. But you cannot shame the shameless, can you?
Yes, you
Really,
can.
This was nothing but a ridiculously civil punishment for a ridiculously vile crime. Ideally, Javed should have been either
Okay, like I know this is Israel, and I know like I don't or wherever this is. I don't know where this is. I don't know what y'all like. I don't know how they view stuff, and like you know what I'm saying, men and women. Like I don't know how they view people. Like because If this man is doing this, they don't view people as people. They view people as a dog or like an ant or something. Because there's just no way.
They're thrown into prison for life or been permanently exiled from the neighborhood, but he wasn't. And I personally
No, he should
suspect
get
it was
boogered.
because of the status of his father in the community.
It was for sure.
No one wanted to offend the old man by heaping more disgrace on top of the shame his son had already brought to his family.
I don't care,
But if
bro.
that was the case, then goodwill was about to expire. Because not long after,
Yep.
Javed's father passed away. And true to form, despite the fact that Javed had been the bane of his existence while he was alive, the old man left him a sizable portion of his estate, about 3.5 million rupees. Javed immediately began to spend big. He built a large house in Rana town in Lahore. There was a pond, a basement, a swimming pool in the
I don't care. I don't care, bro. You know your son is a serial killer and you know he is a rapist and you know he is a booga man and you leave him 3.5 million. I thought he said he had 8 kids. He's just gonna have to get nothing, bro. He gonna have to live on the streets and find his own way. Cause I gave him everything and he squandered his opportunity. Not once, not twice, like 3 or 4 times already. I mean, maybe he just didn't expect himself to. I mean, you never know when you're gonna die. So maybe he wrote that a long time ago, and like he was just, I don't know. It was like, but like, you ain't getting
in
from
the
me,
backyard. It was luxurious. Javed also splurged on cars, 4 of them. A 5-door Pajero, a Lancer, a Toyota, and a Suzuki FX. The Pajero was his favorite, and he was often seen in it, driving around town with the boys he molested. Javed was as business savvy as his
I didn't think clean eating could ever be this delicious.
It's so good. It's delicious.
father, just in a more manipulative way. Because despite the fact that Javed seemed spendthrift, it was strategic. Every item, gadget, property, and vehicle he bought served the purpose of furthering his perversion. Soon enough, Javed came up with the diabolical idea to create a video game store, the first of its kind in the area. He sold his house, moved to a less luxurious residence, and focused on the business. Unsurprisingly, it became a hit in the neighborhood. Word spread.
It's not a video game store. If I know that this is the same Yodi who created this store, and he's gonna make a store for children, and not just children. There are gonna be some girls in this video game store, but there's mostly going to be boys in this video game store. This is not a doll store. He didn't make a doll store. He made a gaming store. Who plays more games out of girls and boys? It's a ratio that boys play more games than girls. Girls play with more dolls than boys. My kid is not going to that store. I don't care. You're going to just be hot. Because I'm going to tell him, okay, you're going to go to that store. And there's a man who's widely known for taking cheeks.
Spread to neighboring communities, and soon, hundreds of boys had become loyal customers of his game shop. But you already know what this was all about.
Come on
Javed would
now.
offer them tokens at reduced rates and sometimes allow them to play for free. Then, he would deliberately drop money on the floor and hide, waiting and watching for who would pick it up. Once the money had been stolen, he'd announce the theft and order everyone to be searched. Of course, the thief would be caught. Then, Javed would take the culprit to a separate room where he sodomized the poor kid as punishment. After the deed had been done, Javed would then try to buy his underage victim's silence by offering him the money he stole. But word got around very quickly, and eventually, the elders expelled Javed Iqbal from the neighborhood. It gets tiring from here on because despite the fact that you know where this story is going, you silently wish someone would do the right thing and throw him in jail. Or
No. He needs to get boogered in GTA. He needs to be gone. Cut. It's he's just gonna go to jail and still get cheeks. from little boys who go to jail from doing a little petty crime. It's like they'll throw a boy or somebody in jail for a whatever X amount of years. I know, I get it. His dad had power. His dad had that much power. Okay, so that's the reason why he was able to escape, because it's the bread. It's really the bread. You know what I'm saying? It was the bread. But you're telling me that this man is dropping bread, and as soon as he sees somebody pick it up, who stole my money? Take him to the back room and just... I'm tired of this one, bro.
Better still, end his problematic existence. But no one did, and Javed moved to a new location in the same city of Lahore, where he continued building businesses with the sole aim of luring in underage children. From an aquarium to a gym, to a school that he touted as the first fully air-conditioned school in the area, Javed just kept having his way. He was a malignant disease that needed to be rooted out. But who was going to do it? What were the police doing through all of this?
Nothing.
They knew who this man was. They knew his previous shaming and sentences, and what he had done, and what he was capable of. So why didn't they throw the scum into a jail cell? I already mentioned how he obnoxiously sucked up to them, and I have mentioned how he bribed them. But considering the number of boys he violated, surely he couldn't have bribed every parent and every policeman. You are correct, but there was a problem. Most of the parents that found out didn't go to the police because they didn't want to. The relationship between the people and the police in Pakistan at the time was testy, to put things mildly.
Okay.
No one willingly reported anything to the police. People were scared of them. Corruption was rife, and those who actually reported their crimes were either extorted or treated badly by officers who genuinely didn't give a shit. In Javed's
Okay, well then, boom. Case closed. What else is there to talk about? This is not the only man or person that was doing crimes and doing some shyster activities. You can't even go to the police. That's why the brother didn't go to the police or do anything, because you're gonna go to the police. You're gonna say that this man, oh, I saw this man, his name was Javed. They're gonna be like, Javed? Oh, that's the homie, Javed. You know, like the police, oh, Javed wouldn't do anything. Of course. They're not gonna do nothing. He can literally write a letter to them saying, hey, I did this, and they're not gonna care.
Javed's case, his relationship with the police had matured into something mutually beneficial. Javed
Hey, y'all know where he at.
Crime magazine
This is where he at right now. I hope.
Of police officers, and established
He gonna burn,
contacts with the top officials in the department. He even had.
I hope he burn, and I hope he gets. I hope he. I don't know. He might even like it, bro. But I hope he go down there, he burn, and he get tormented by all them little boys. All 100 of them. They should be Kaneki in that boy. They should be freaking Tokyo Ghouling him. Every day, every time he opened his eyes, I want him to get slaughtered by 100 little boys.
Had politician friends.
And I want you to feel that pain. I want them to take his heart and rip it out, show that boy, and he die, and then he wake up the next day and get tormented again in a different way. Because this is insane. This has to be the worst one I've seen, bro. This has to be the worst one I've seen.
So reporting a man like that to the same police could very easily backfire.
Yeah,
Javed
I know.
was, in a sense, untouchable, and he felt that way until one fateful night in September 1998. On that night, Javed paid for the services of a 15-year-old masseuse. But halfway through their session, Javed molested the teenager. And when he was done, he fell asleep. Desperate for swift revenge, the traumatized teenager invited a friend to join him. And together, they took Javed to the gates of hell with a beating so thorough, his skull was fractured, his jaw was broken, and he slipped into a coma.
I'm not even mad. Name the kid. God bless the kid. Whoever, yeah, because I ain't gonna lie, that would have been me. No cap. Now, okay, he messed up because he didn't kill the kid, right? But it was a teenager, right? So like, but yeah, nah, yeah, finally, I don't know why it took 100 of these jits to do that, but it would have been me. For what? If I knew my brother went there, I would have went back there. I would have found him. I would have found him with the homies. I would have been there with the 3 or 4 of the homies, because I ain't going dolo. I would have been there with 3 or 4 of the homies. And I don't think I wouldn't have tried to like kill him, because I'm, you know, feel me? I'm not a killer. But one thing for sure, that schwank he got, if he that schwank cut, boy. That, that junk gone. That's one. 2, oh yeah, you getting these hands, bruh. You getting these hands. No fair ones either. Ain't no fair ones too. Boy.
22 days, Javed was unconscious at Lahore General Hospital.
Thank
During
you.
this time, his family helped him settle his mounting hospital bills until he gained consciousness.
I ain't helping
and
him.
Even when he gained consciousness, he couldn't walk without assistance for 6 months. But that wasn't the only problem. Javed realized that his family had sold all of his assets to pay for his hospital bills and bail. His house, his cars, his shop, everything he owned.
And then as soon as I find out that he out, I'm double. Oh no, spin the block. I'm spinning. What? You gonna do that to me? And then you got beat, and you lucky you survived. Oh, I'm doubling back. You getting right back in that coma, boy. Facts.
Had been sold to fund his lengthy recovery in the hospital. No one in his family had spent their own money on him. His life was doomed.
Good.
He moved in with his aging mother who cared for him. But a few months after he moved in, she suffered a heart attack and passed away.
She suffered a heart attack.
The loss of his business and the loss of his parents caused something inside of him to break. Javed needed someone to blame, and that wasn't himself. And after weeks of deep thought, he found what or who he was looking for. He found his target and proceeded to formulate a terrible plan for revenge. My mother cried for me. I wanted 100 mothers to cry for their children. This was one of the many reasons Javed gave to the press for the murders he committed. 100 mothers, 100 boys.
Hold on. He did way worse than 100 boys. The 100 boys is the ones that he actually like killed and murdered and what you call it. But he been on timing. So this is like 200, 300. He might be in the 500s. Now, I know he probably only killed 100 and did all that too, but there was way more Yodis before this. Cuz his dad gave him a villa at 16, 17.
In an extremely twisted way, Javed's concept of affection revolved around the material items he showered on the boys he violated. The only thing he felt they owed him was sex. Owed him. As ridiculous as that sounds, this was Javed Iqbal's way of thinking. He believed he loved the boys. Now that a boy that he loved had destroyed his life, and his own deluded belief, caused by the death of his mother, he now hated the boys and wanted to kill enough of them to send a message. Before this plan, the acts he had committed revolved around sexual crimes. He hadn't murdered any of his previous victims.
True.
But for 6 months, from June to November of 1999, Javed engaged the services of 3 of his most trusted boys. 17-year-old Sajid Ahmed, 15-year-old Mohammed Nadim, and 13-year-old Mohammed Sabir. Sajid and Nadim were 2 of the boys that lured Ijaz, the masseuse, to Javed's house on 16B Ravi Road. Many of the victims had families. Some were runaways. Some others were just out on errands. And then there were the occasional few that were orphans who had no one to search for them, whom no one even knew they were missing. Of these 100 boys, none was older than 16 and none younger than 6. Javed had every picture of every one of the 100 boys he violated pinned to the walls of his house. And on the 17th of February 2000, as the trial of Javed Iqbal began, those pictures were placed on the desk of the presiding judge. I did it to...
If I see my brother right there, I'm going to jail that day. No cap. I'm going to jail. I want to be put in that same jail. And it's GG for you. And he got off, right? So I'm gonna just pay him that check and be like, I'm out too. If he getting out, I'm out too. I'll pay them that check after I booger this thing.
To avenge an attempt on my life by my boys, the death of my mother, and injustice in society. This was yet another reason Javed Iqbal gave to the press for the atrocious crimes he committed. That interview with the press, moments before his arrest, was taped, and it became part of the court evidence against him. There were also the letters, the pictures, the clothes of his victims, 86 pairs of the victims' shoes, and images of the body parts they had found in the vats of acid. And when it came to the witnesses, the prosecution produced 105 of them, including 73 members of the missing children's family. They found the owner of the studio where Javed had developed the photographs he took. They even found the rickshaw driver who had helped him transport the vats of acid for disposal during his 6-month murderous bender. The case against him was so overwhelming. Why on earth was Javed now recanting every confession he had ever made? He was insisting he didn't commit the crimes. I mean, the prosecution had his confession in writing and a videotape recording of him saying he repeatedly did it.
He's sick.
The truth is, Javed was an unremorseful animal, a petulant child who never outgrew his indulgent teenage years in the village.
Yeah, because he started to realize, wait, if I go to jail, I'm not gonna be able to do this no more. So I'm gonna say not guilty. Like, of course.
200cc bike. Because after pleading not guilty, the petulant predator became a menace in court. He showed no sign of remorse and teased the judge with silly errands, requests for hot meals, and warm sweaters in the middle of trial sessions. It was clear he believed everything was a joke, especially when he claimed that he had staged the killings as a humanitarian effort to highlight the plight of runaway kids. When the prosecution asked him to rationalize the clothes of children found in his house, he said he bought them from a secondhand market.
Sure.
But parents of the missing boys had identified many of these clothes. There were mothers showing stitches that were unique to their style, along with pictures of their missing kids wearing them. Again, the case against Javed
I've been yearning for this moment.
was undeniable. There was no doubt that he committed the crimes, but the case had become a global affair, and the international community was watching. Javed knew that nothing illegal could be done to him during the trial. At some point, he even felt he could beat the case. Why? Because the police had bent the law themselves in their bid to bring Javed to justice. During the manhunt, a friend of Javed was taken by the police for interrogation when he suddenly jumped from a third-floor building in the police station to his death. This was the police account of events. When an autopsy was conducted, there were signs that Javed's friend had been tortured. Meanwhile, during one of the proceedings, Javed's lawyer claimed before the open court that someone powerful had approached him to abandon the case. If this was true, there was a conspiracy at play. If it wasn't, Javed's lawyer perjured himself to gain an advantage in court. No one knew what was true or false. However, Javed's lawyer stayed with the case till the end. Another argument for Javed's innocence was why none of his neighbors had said anything when one teenager after another vanished into his house. It was a reasonable argument, but it lacked legs, because if the judge was going to consider the chance that Javed was innocent based on that premise, the defense would have to have had proved that at least one of the missing 100 boys was alive, and they couldn't. And so, after a month of a rigorous trial process, the judge found Javed guilty. He ruled.
What you mean after a month? He wrote you a letter. He already admitted to his crimes. What are we talking about here? There's nothing to talk about.
Javed and his oldest accomplice, the 17-year-old Sajid, were to be hanged at Maniri, Pakistan, the same garden where they lured in most of the boys. And he ordered that their bodies be cut into 100 pieces and dissolved in acid in front of the families of the victims.
Now we talking. Now we talking. And look, I'm not an advocate, but some of these yodis, they just gotta go, bro. He just gotta go. Like, it's fine. He done took 100 yodis. One life for 100 yodis. He just gotta go. And I'm not trying to be like this person that's like, oh, he got, like, you know what I'm saying? I'm not trying to advocate like killing and nothing like that. Like, I don't, you know what I mean? But like, sometimes, bro, like, some of these people just gotta go. There are 6 billion other people. There's 6 billion people, maybe even more, on this planet, bro. We can do without one, bro. Especially if he's just murdering and being a booga man. We can do without this guy. Him and his little accomplice. You're weird. You're weird.
While this might seem like a fitting sentence to you, it was an emotional sentence that violated Islamic tenets and a couple of human rights laws.
I know.
The Pakistani government condemned the sentence and deemed it unconstitutional. It was amended, but the death sentence stood. His accomplices were given lengthy sentences, and they were all sent to maximum security prison. But even in a maximum security jail, Javed's bloated sense of worth and entitlement persisted. In fact, his admission of innocence took a religious turn. He told one visiting journalist that he was chosen by God for a special purpose. He told another that he intended to appeal his case and that he had NGOs lining up to defend him, which was not exactly true. Whatever was going on through his evil skull would eventually come to a screeching halt a year after his conviction. Javed, along with one of his accomplices, were found dead in their cells. They had used their shirts to hang themselves.
Yeah, because he knew he wasn't going out and he knew he wasn't going to get more cheeks. That's the only reason why he did that. That's the only reason, because he knew it was over and he wouldn't be able to continue to do what he wanted to do. So he just said, all right, let's just get it over with.
This was the police report. When the autopsy was conducted, there were signs of torture. Javed's family was convinced that he was killed because he had tried to reveal the names of top government officials within the Pakistani government who slept with his boys, Jeffrey Epstein style, just without the island. However, there is a more plausible alternative for the skeptics. 4 days before Javed Iqbal was found dead in his cell, the country's highest Islamic court had agreed to hear his appeal against the death sentence. Thanks for tuning into Twisted Minds. That was the case of Javed Iqbal, and why don't you go ahead and
5 murders at 9 years old. 9-year-old serial killer. I'm about to save that to watch later.
I switched from due dates to due dates. And
oh my goodness. I don't get what we're even talking about, though. He already confessed his crime. He sent the newsletter to 2 people. You went into his house. I'm sure there was some DNA. You know what I'm saying? What are we talking about? What are we talking about? Why are we debating this? I don't care if he got the death sentence or not. I don't care. He should have just... I'm glad he's out, bro. I don't even get what they're even talking about, bro. This has to be the worst case that I've ever heard. I'm so mad that I just watched that.